So what Barcelona's vice president had to say about the future of Lionel Messi. It would be possible financially because if he returned, it would be as a free agent. But it's a decision which has to be made by the coaching staff and the player. It doesn't correspond to me to make those decisions, but it would be viable. Of course, he's got 1 year left at PSG. I think this is a ridiculous idea, isn't it?
Well, he just said it at the end of his quote. It doesn't correspond to me. So it's not your place, so why even talk about it?
He said we can afford it.
Yeah, okay, fantastic, great. Okay, and what have you done? What have you resolved? Oh. Now you've created a conversation that is unnecessary. This team is trying to move in a different direction and finally seems to be heading in a direction in which Barcelona and Barcelona fans would be happy to see this team playing well and scoring goals and entertaining and competing and perhaps potentially making a run in Champions League and perhaps potentially winning La Liga. Why look that way? No, look to the future. Look into what you're doing now. Trust the plan that you have in place. Please do not go and open the Lionel Messi conversation again, because all that will do is bring undue pressure to everybody who's involved with this club.
But he's been good this season for PSG, good for Argentina. Pull that Messi lever.
I don't understand why you want to pull that Messi lever just to appease the fans. I don't know.
I don't know if the fans do. You really want it?
Well, and which is why it makes even less sense. All good things come to an end. Barcelona, at some point, we're going to have to figure out how to play football without Lionel Messi. Whether we had that situation last year or no, you get that clean break that you needed.
Yep.
He goes to PSG. Now, whether you want to bring him back in later years as an ambassador or some other capacity, you figure that out at the time. But from a footballing perspective, that break was made, and it was clean. It's got nothing to do with you. You've got incredible young talent coming through. You focus on that. You've already sold half your future in terms of your commercial rights and television rights. From a financial perspective, I don't understand why it makes sense either. This it makes absolutely no sense other than to have some kind of personal gratification to boost your own personal standing with the fans. But from a footballing and a big picture perspective, it falls flat.
Go to Miami.
Yeah, and if you're
not you.
Oh, I was on my way there for a minute.
Well, we know you in Miami, Shagger.
Yeah, well, nobody disappears quite like Shagger does in Miami.
Barcelona are in action without Messi against Mallorca this weekend. They go into the tie with a number of injuries, of course, after the FIFA virus struck hard. Araujo obviously out for the rest of the calendar year. Memphis Depay, Koundé out as well. Bellerin as well. Frankie de Jong looks like he'll miss out. Dembele, meanwhile, returns. Now, this is what Xavi had to say about Barcelona injuries. There are many factors why these injuries have arrived. Long journeys, working with different methodologies, the load of games for the players. Each case is different and we are not looking to blame anyone. Maybe communication with the national teams could be better. I think FIFA have a plan to have a World Cup every 2 years, which has been controversial, but there is a calendar where national teams are together for 1.5 months, then the clubs get the players for the rest of the year. It's something that Gab was actually inside on the show before. Makes sense, doesn't it? Boom. Have all your international bits in what, a 6-week block. Have the Nations League games there and then have the final, do it all there instead of this September, October, November. Keep going away with the national teams, keep putting pressure on these players and inevitably, hopefully, trying to avoid these injuries.
Right, and now this conversation only comes up because there's a few Barcelona players that have come back injured. And many coaches around the world will complain about the same thing. From the national team perspective, so you work with a group of players for 6 weeks, and then you don't see them until when? So how do you actually follow the development of a player, or the growth of a player? So now you're no longer constructing or building a national team. Now you're just, hey, these guys are ready for this time period and this moment in time. And then, since we're not going to see you until next year, that whole story that you just built here will be completely different there.
You can still see them domestically, though. You can still see them playing for their club teams. Like, how much time do they really have with these players to get kind of an insight into how good they are within the national camp?
First
One
of all,
or 2 days.
I don't know how you're looking at players like this.
Because I'm in the stands. Got my binoculars domestically.
It's not the same.
Right.
It's not the same. It's not the same as having these players with you and having these players as part of team meetings and how they carry themselves. And you need to have these interactions. You need to build a certain chemistry. And I know it's difficult in a short period of time. So in that sense, you would think, okay, well, yeah, the 6 weeks together would be ideal. Yeah, but then you don't see each other for another year. That's the part that doesn't make any sense. I understand that you're looking into protecting the players. And I want to protect the players as well. Believe me, my travel schedule with the national team was nonsense, and I had to go to all sorts of different places, and it was difficult getting back to your team. But that's part of being an international player. And while we can improve it, while we can make it better and actually make a serious attempt in making it better, I don't think that putting essentially a mini tournament for 6 weeks and then we'll see you guys next year, I don't think that's a solution.
At least you made the effort to go back to your club team.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
The other question I have to this is, where is that 6 or 8 week block that serves every country well? While we're talking about Europe, what about the countries from the Southern Hemisphere? What about Asia? What about Africa? Where suits everybody well? And I simply don't think that 6 or 8 week block that everybody's throwing out and is happy to discuss fits. The system is what it is. It's not great, but until somebody realistically comes up with something better, let's just stop kind of floating these ideas that only serve the European nations, because I will always push back against that.
Mallorca then this weekend. Any problem?
Some because of the injuries and there's a history of Barcelona and actually most teams, when they come back from an international break, they seem to have a letdown. So I am sure that this is something that is being addressed by Xavi and that they're not looking ahead to Champions League, which is going to be a critical time for Barcelona as well. So the injuries may cause a problem, but this is why you mortgage the future of the club, right? To have the depth, to have the power and the strength in this squad to be able to deal with these sort of situations. And in terms of key players, Lewandowski's still out there, Pedri's still out there, Gavi's still out there, Sergio Busquets still out there, and then those guys that may not be able to play, the options coming off the bench are guys that you should be able to trust. Gerard Piqué, Jordi Alba potentially. These are guys that have had plenty of experience with Barcelona, and I'm sure that they're excited to get an opportunity to play. So I think they'll be okay against Mallorca. What happens in Champions League, I think that's more of a question.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN+.